Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. Welcome to Life on Earth. Well, hello, you
Yay.
Good people, and welcome to Life on Earth. Today is July 14th, 2022. This is post-OCON, or as some of us are calling it, Oconicron. Yeah, a lot of you already know. Your host, me, half of your host here. Yeah, I got hit with the COVID at OCON, got OCONified. So I'm gonna do my best here, but today's topic comes courtesy of my co-host.
Yeah, I thought of it and I said, let's do this.
Let's do this. So welcome to Life on Earth. As you know, our weekly show, a little more weekly than usual. Our weekly show on Life on Earth. You know, Ayn Rand did describe her philosophy informally as a philosophy for living on Earth. If that is so, it stands to reason that objectivists, other things being equal, should be among the happiest, the most successful, the most benevolent and gracious.
Cheers.
The most sexy and fly people that you will ever meet.
Superfly.
Totally. Okay, we're a little irreverent. Again, the COVID is still in my brain and I'm doing my best here, but I'm still testing positive. Should we be sitting this closely?
Oh, we're fine.
It's strange when
I'm not positive. I'm negative.
No, when you
Very
caught it a
negative
month
right
and a
now.
half ago, I didn't avoid you much any more than usual.
Well, it's
and
the same thing than when I
didn't
got
get it.
COVID.
Yeah.
Robert didn't get COVID when I had COVID in the same house and all that.
I mean, it's obviously contagious enough that dozens of people from OCON have now reported that they caught it. Yet somehow I don't know. Oconicron. Yeah, maybe we're not intimate often enough. Maybe that's a sign of something. In any event,
I'll give you a Christian side hug.
Christian, give me that Christian side hug. If you don't know what a Christian side hug is, Google search that puppy, because I didn't put it in the links for today's show. But if you go to facebook.com/Robert Nasir, you're already friends with me. You know where that is. You will see the links to go with today's show, and you're going to want them. You're going to want them because even though Amy basically wrote the show, I put a bunch of good links up there related to stuff she's going to talk about, I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to let you take over for a minute because I want to look in the chat.
Okay, yeah. So our title is how's your universe?
How's your universe? Where does that come from?
This is a question that Ayn Rand said often, according to Leonard Peikoff in his My 30 Years with Ayn Rand lecture.
This may be this decrepit copy of The Voice of Reason, Essays in Objectivism. Now, you don't have to go out and buy, although you should, you don't have to go out and buy a dead tree version of this book. And the reason is the essay in question, the one that Amy mentioned, My 30 Years with Ayn Rand, is available online. In fact, it's available as text and also the audio-visual version, Ford Hall Forum. Leonard Peikoff delivered it. That's the one to listen to because, he gets choked up.
Yeah.
You will get choked up. I got choked up.
It's beautiful.
Super sweet. But in that lecture or essay, depending on how you are consuming it, Leonard Peikoff writes about Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand herself repudiated any dichotomy between mind and person. Her mind, she held, was the essence of her person. It was her highest value, the source of her other values, and the root of her character traits. Thinking, to her, was not merely an interest or a passion, it was a lifestyle. When she greeted you, for instance, she often asked not, how are you, but how's your universe?
Yes.
Her meaning was, how's your view of the universe? Have the problems of daily life swamped your philosophical knowledge? Or are you still holding on to the fact that reality is intelligible and values are possible?
Mm-hmm.
Love that. He goes on, similarly, when you left, she would say not goodbye, but good premises. In other words, don't count on luck or God for success, but on your own thinking.
Yes.
And then he closes that section saying, if self-esteem means confidence in the power of one's mind, then the explanation of Ayn Rand's profound self-esteem is obvious. She earned it, both in virtue of the value she ascribed to the mind and of the meticulous method by which she used her own. But for today's purposes, that one little bit there, when she greeted you, for instance, she often asked not, how are you?
I really love,
but how's your universe?
How's your universe? I really love how he said thinking to her was not merely an interest or even a passion. It was a lifestyle.
Yes.
And that's such a great description of one of the many great descriptions of Ayn Rand's method of thinking in Objectivism.
A friend of ours online just got a copy of the book, the blue book. I got COVID brain. It just escaped my mind. Facets of Ayn Rand.
Yes.
A great book by Marianne Suries and Charles Suries. And in there is the copper pot objectivist story, the glorious lunch break.
Yes.
And at the end of the story, which you've heard us tell, if you don't know it, you will look it up either in our previous episode or now. The Ayn Rand Institute is publishing Facets of Ayn Rand online in sections. They're up to part 6 now. Glorious lunch break, in which Marianne Suries is unsure about a value she holds. Ayn Rand helps her not just validate the value, but fight for it, whether she has a full validation or not. She says, never give up. Oh, this was in my 30 years. Never give up what you want most in life. The struggle is worth it. At the end of the section of Facets of Ayn Rand, she says to Marianne Suries, do you know what we are doing here? And Marianne says, well, we're discussing this pot and this value. She says, what we are doing here is we are taking ideas seriously. They're talking about a kitchen utensil, a pot, and feelings about this thing,
and
but
how to shine it and how to make it look good hanging on her wall. I mean, really, I personally love copper, and we do know that Ayn Rand wasn't a great fan of housework. I'm not quite either. Who is? I don't know, but she could see Marianne Suries' value in what she was doing, and she could imagine it. She could empathize with it, and that was wonderful.
Right. So you're right to highlight that line. Thinking to her was not merely an interest or even a passion. It was a lifestyle. This is taking ideas seriously. This is what is unique to Ayn Rand's approach.
And I also love how he talks that he says basically, when she greeted you, she said, how's your universe? Which in her meaning was, have the problems of daily life swamped your philosophical knowledge, or are you still holding on to the fact that reality is intelligible and that values are possible? That's so good.
So we just got back from OCON, OCON 2022. And it came up earlier, what is the talk you're most looking forward to? And my answer to that question was Yaron Brook's talk, of course, on why I am still optimistic about the future. He hasn't published it, or ARI hasn't published that one on YouTube yet. When they do, of course, I'll link to it. But I have linked to Tal Tsfany's discussion.
Yes.
And I've also linked to a previous talk by Yaron about why to be a rational optimist from OCON in 2018. Some of the answers are a little bit different. They're still true. They're still the case. But he added more this year, and the perspective that he added was very interesting. So I'm glad, Amy, that you have chosen to talk about that this time.
Yes, and just so you know, I excerpted. This is I don't think it was in Tal's talk about the future of ARI, but it was a precursor, it's an introduction to when Ankar Ghate was going to be talking about the Dobbs ruling for overturning Roe versus Wade. So it's sort of like, this is, our very, Tal came out, he said, kind of an introduction, kind of like getting everybody kind of ready and framing what was going to be happening throughout the week. And I really appreciated what he said. So
did you want to read part of the notes you took?
Sure.
What he said?
Sure. He said, so he had like bullet points and things like that. And then he kind of did what he encourages people to do in his happiness team project, which you can look up online somewhere. I think it's like myhappiness.team something. Anyway.
Yeah, myhappiness.team.
Myhappiness.team. Thank you. And he encouraged himself to introspect about the meaning of this talk that he's going to be giving, what it means to him, what kind of ideas are most important to relate to the audience of OCON, to give them a good framework, a positive and useful framework for the week. And he said, I feel inspired. I feel at home. I feel that I'm among people who understand what I understand. That whole idea of you feel at home. You go to a conference, who's ever gone to a marketing conference, right? And you felt at home. I don't know. I haven't, but at OCON and at other conferences we've attended as well, especially our Great Lakes Objectivist conferences, which I do hope that we're going to get back with next year. You do feel inspired, and you do feel at home, and you do feel this sense of goodwill. And that's kind of what I got out of his first part. And he goes on to talk about, how people respond to the same shared values that he has, who have walked the same kind of personal life-changing paths that he walked. So he has empathy. He has empathy for people. People can empathize with each other. So just imagine getting a bunch of people like this together who also have this, same framework, philosophical framework in mind, who have applied these ideas to their lives. And those ideas happen to be Ayn Rand's philosophy. How amazing that is. And I really love how he said, we are truly a special collection of people. Did you notice how intelligent people are around you are?
Now
Yeah.
one thing I would point out, because there's so many of us involved in the culture war or politics in general, that there would be a concern about echo chambers. And, you're surrounded by a bunch of people who think the same way you do. It's just reinforcing without letting you think about other perspectives. That would be true if this was a political rally, or if this was a conference to fight the culture war. When you're talking about positive values, on the other hand, being surrounded by kindred spirits is not an echo chamber at all. In fact, there was plenty of conversation, plenty of disagreements, but honest disagreements, and people willing to say what they really thought. So when Tal says, I'm among people who understand what I understand, who respond to what I respond to, who share my values, people who've walked the same personal life-changing path that I've experienced. And he goes on. Again, it's all positive, it's all good, and it's not about convincing anybody of anything at that point, but about clarity, reinforcement, celebration.
Right. And the kind of visibility that you get from people who are not only intelligent, but for instance, I'm not a member of Mensa. You have to be super brainiac or something like that to be involved in this kind of thing.
Well, to be clear, you've never tested.
No, but
So
I don't want to test.
I wouldn't say you're not even not a member.
Right. Well, anyway, so, but the fact of the matter is that, as he said, this is the best system of ideas that has ever been devised to guide us towards thriving and flourishing life. Here you have, whatever their intelligence or not, you have people who take values seriously and actually think deeply on values and apply those values and those ideas and those virtues and values as wisdom to their life, and or trying to, especially with the students who come there and everything. You would hope the students would see around them people who are trying to apply these ideas to their lives and to better their lives for it and to achieve happiness for it. So I thought that was a really excellent way to start off the conference and to frame it. And, the whole idea of how is your universe integrating into that, I think that's something that we as objectivists, when we go to conferences or we see each other or go to speeches or however, or even online, let's ask ourselves, how is your universe? And, how is, how are these ideas affecting your life for the better, or do you have any challenges? Are there ways that we can empathize with one another? Is there ways that we can complement one another? Is there, it's all about treating each other as human beings in a context of goodwill, and that's what I do hope for, and that's what I have seen. And I hope to see more of that. So how is your universe, everybody? If you want to put in the chat, how is your universe? Is it kind of rainy and gloomy, and why? Is it really sunshiny and lovely, and why? And how do Ayn Rand's ideas relate to that?
Yeah, because current events have been a challenge. They addressed right at the beginning of the conference, the recent Roe versus Wade decision.
I've got my women's right to vote suffrage pin on right now.
That's right. And so they weren't shying away. Of course, we're in Washington, D.C. anyway. So they weren't shying away from discussing current events at all. Excuse me. And the integration in regard to that was made by several speakers, but it really stood out for me with Yaron Brook.
Yes.
Answering the question, is he still optimistic about the future? And he said, during his talk, he said, what do I mean by optimism? And this is a great question to ask yourself if you feel anything less than optimistic about the future. Yaron says, what do I mean by optimism? I mean a positive view of what is possible in the future. Well, that's pretty simple. That's pretty wide open. And a lot of people jump right to, well, Biden and Trump and the oil and Russia and the news items.
Yeah.
A positive view of what is possible in the future. Yaron says the most important place to have that optimism, to apply that attitude for the future is in your own life. It's very difficult to pursue values, to be ambitious about your life, about your happiness, if you're consumed with dread, if you're afraid about what's happening in the future. And he goes on, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, partly because it hasn't been released yet, but it will. It'll end up on YouTube soon. But he made an interesting point. He was asked, what am I optimistic about? And he covered so many domains of life, and all of us should do that when we ask, well, are things getting better or worse? Should I be optimistic or pessimist? Is it possible to be a rational optimist anymore, or has that become an oxymoron? Well, there's politics in world events. There's also politics in national and local events. And in those domains, there's certainly cause for pessimism. There's science and technology. There's health and medicine. There is finance and economics, a mixed case these days, given inflation. There is art and entertainment. There is sports. There are so many domains of life. And in the vast majority of those domains, values are not only possible, but they are open to you. They are open to me. The opportunities are limitless. And the only thing to be pessimistic about is the fact that we're mortal and we don't have enough hours in a day and days in a year and years in a life to do all of the things we would like to do, to see all of the concerts, and for some of us to perform some of the concerts, to have all of the parties and the picnics, to go to all of the places and travel to see things we've never seen before, to spend time with kindred spirits, to get our feet wet walking in a creek, and to go out and play and dance and sing and take chances and hurt ourselves and recover.
I got a bad sunburn, by the way.
Amy we had a great kayaking afternoon on Saturday.
100% worth it for kayaking.
Totally. Excuse me while I mute for a second. Sorry, had to do that. Yeah, the kayaking was
yes,
great.
It was 100% worth it. I put sunscreen on the top of me, but not on my legs. Oops.
Oops. Well,
Oops.
You figure they're not getting the direct sun angle, and
Yeah,
you'll be okay,
a
right?
little lower to the sun than. I don't know.
We have a super chat.
Yes.
Oh, cool. Mary Aline with $5 in the chat goes to the Ayn Rand Center UK.
Yay.
Put in those super chats. It supports the channel we're on and the people doing the good work behind the scenes. Support the channel with those super chats, but also aynrandcenter.co.uk. Click membership at the top. Become a member. Mary Aline, thank you for that. And she says, and does this resonate with me? My universe is a little fuzzy. COVID does that. But OCON was wonderful. So many good talks, good people, good things in general. I could not agree more. I have exactly the same feeling, and including the COVID part, which is funny because even though I'm not at my best mentally, it causes me to speak more, not less. I should try to remember to let Amy talk more, but real quick, a couple more super chats because
Yes.
Apollo Zeus is in for £2, not $2, £2, still worth more than $1. And he says, go Team Nasir. Thank you for that. Very much appreciated. Here's the reason I say that. I mentioned finance and economics. Well, is that a cause for optimism? What about the inflation?
And the coming recession.
The coming recession. First of all, I don't think the coming recession is a fait accompli. If you had asked me in April of 2000, are we going to recover from the Dow going down to 17,000 in less than, say, 5 years or 10 years? How many of us would have said, no, yeah, it's probably going to take a long time. It's probably going to be in the upper teens for a long time. And it just bounced right back. It was the craziest. Now I know it's the Dow. I know it's the market. I know that aside from the fundamentals, there's a certain level of arbitrariness to it. But in the fundamentals, it's not. You can't cheat those numbers for long. And it did bounce back. So I'm not sure the recession is going to have staying power. I don't know. I can see this turning around. I don't mean this month or next month, but by the end of the year, you watch. We'll see. Also, Bonnie is into the super chat as well. And thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Bonnie.
And it was great
So
hearing from Bonnie, both, this week on ARCUK and in the chat, but also hearing from her over OCON. We had a lot of fun doing a Sunday show while we were there, even though we did skip the Thursday one. It was great fun. And I feel like that one kind of gave us a twofer. You got the first half.
Yeah,
of
if
the
you
week.
haven't seen the Sunday show, this is go to Robert Nasir's YouTube channel.
YouTube.com/Robert Nasir.
Yes, and you'll see that for 5 minutes with Robert Nasir.
That
Look
was
that up.
fun.
And Robert was just so animated and so vivacious.
Oh, yeah.
and-
Give me your
and-
opinion on that, because I have been told, you can see we're sitting in front of a piano. The key word, yes, the key word there is sitting. I was told when we did the 5 minutes episode last Sunday, because we were in the lobby of the hotel and noisy and people, special guests coming on, Jonathan Honig shows up and buys me a drink. It was the coolest thing. But
he gave me water.
But I'm told that because we were in the lobby standing up, we were on our feet. The way Yaron Brook does his shows, that the show had more energy than usual. It was great. It was fast and it was super. And we should do that again. We should do that more. All of our shows should be done standing up.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, our wonderful, super excellent benefactor, Daniel, was interviewed.
That was cool.
Show.
Daniel was on there and Sean
Mike,
Albert, the teacher, professor
Sean, I
of all
think
things high
Chandler was
school.
on there.
I don't think Chandler spoke.
Oh, okay.
We talked about him.
Yeah.
Because, Chandler did the OCON 2022 rap. If you haven't seen Chandler's rap, do a Facebook search for that one. Too cool. It brought to mind the original Raka Ali OCON roast.
Yes.
If you do a search on YouTube for Yaron roast, which sounds like, anyway, hilarious. But Chandler
Sounds like a good coffee.
did OCON rap, not as edgy as, something Raka would do, but super cool. In any event,
Yes.
I do think it was a good show.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah. Yeah. And it looks like Seamus has become a member.
Yay!
So the one thing I did not mention.
Yay!
You get the piano celebratory sound there. Very nice. One thing I didn't mention, besides supporting the ARCUK in the super chat, throw a few dollars on a question or comment, and becoming a member at the ARCUK. You go to their website, AynRandCenter.co.uk, and click member at the top. The other thing you can do is you become a member on YouTube. YouTube's got their own little thing where you become a member of ARCUK on YouTube, and you see how your comments stand out. They get the little starry icon. You get access to the cool little emoji faces for all of the hosts. For whatever reason, I'm in there too, but Amy's is awfully cute. One more thing you can do. Oh, see, Seamus just found that. He just did it. He's on it. He's way ahead of me. Okay, very cool. You can do it too. I think that one is only like $4.99 a month. something trivial like that.
Yes.
And you get to
it
be
is.
like us. You get to be like the cool kids. You're already awfully cool. But there's one more thing that you can do. So yes, Yaron's talk on why I am still an optimist. And then he did lay out, I said, all those different areas. He did mention politics. And he said, well, one of the good things that happened was Donald Trump did not win the presidency. And he lost. Donald Trump lost. But I'm going to go a step further than that. Now, I know there are some folks out there listening right now, and you know who you are. I'm not even going to say your name. I hate to call you out because you're wrong, and that makes it embarrassing. But I know some of you out there are like, oh, I don't know. I think things would have been better if Trump had won. Now we've got Biden. I know you're out, and in some ways you're right. Not in any important ways, but in some ways you're right. Here's the thing that Yaron didn't say, but that I'm going to say. The good news is Trump lost and Bernie Sanders lost.
Oh, did Bernie lose? Oh, Elizabeth Warren lost as well.
I don't think that is fully appreciated, or people don't realize that. When Yaron Brook says that they're crazy right, there's some real crazies out on the right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's crazies on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And all of my right-wing friends say, no. Everybody on the left is crazy. They are all just as bad as the worst of them. They're simply wrong. And this is something Yaron gets.
Mm-hmm.
The left isn't the crazy left. A lot of college students, a lot of college professors, and a certain percentage of the media, yeah, they're on the crazy left, the far left. They are the radicals. They are the leadership and the crazies in BLM and Antifa and going back to Occupy Wall Street, whatever today's current thing is. And Yaron gets it. Yaron realizes the fringe is the fringe. The fringe isn't the mainstream. He gets that.
Yep.
And what's my proof of that?
Bunnies.
But also, Donald Trump lost and Bernie Sanders lost.
Yes.
It's the weirdest thing, but the president of the United States right now is this old, creepy,
120-year-old,
boring, middle of the road, milk toast. I know you're going to tell me he's super radical. He wanted, and then you'll name some radical thing.
Well, Camilla is not getting what she wants. I'll tell you that.
Depends on what you think she wants. Joe Biden is horrible, but he's not horrible like Bernie Sanders is horrible, and he's not horrible like Donald Trump is horrible. He's just horrible. He's a bad president. We all would have rather have had, on the right, we'd rather have Nikki Haley, and on the left, we'd rather have Tulsi Gabbard. But
perhaps
Joe Biden is not the worst thing that could have happened. And I mean, credibly could have happened. So yes.
So
yes.
Let me tell you one thing, and I hope that, this is the thing. Okay. There's one particular part of Yaron's speech that I really, really appreciated. And I didn't actually catch the first time that I listened to, or I was there watching it. And this is what he said.
What did he say?
Regardless of what students are being taught in schools, they leave school and then they get a job. They get a boss, they get deadlines, they get schedules and paychecks. And that in itself, that experience of having that, it improves almost everybody. Just that reality. It teaches them to think differently about the world. And that still exists. That's a topic actually for an entire show. What does working in a job give you? What kind of, you might say, well, it gives you financial stability. No, actually, it gives you a sense of efficaciousness. It gives you an outlet for thought. It gives you engagement with reality and other people who are reasonable, hopefully reasonable, usually. And that kind of, so he goes on to say that the workplace is the one place that reorients Americans back to reality. After they've swallowed all the nonsense in the universities, they get a job, and then that brings them back to reality. And he says, work is still a value in this country, and I don't see that going away.
Yeah.
And I thought that was wonderful to say. Yeah,
it's kind of heartbreaking, because there's a friend of ours in the chat who I know right now is shouting at her radio, and by radio, of course, I mean whatever device, computer or phone y'all are listening on, that there's no good craftsmen out there anymore. And companies don't take quality seriously anymore. And I think there's some of that. I think there's a substantial complaint to be made there. But at the same time, I observe the fact that it's not idiocracy yet.
No.
The servers that are feeding you this internet feed, and the companies that are making all of this possible, the companies that are still producing and creating and inventing, companies like Google and Alphabet and Apple and even Microsoft are still producing, still creating. You can still buy a computer. You can buy devices for $100 that outshine what I spent thousands of dollars on 20 years ago. Things are still happening.
Yeah.
It's interesting that companies are not simply falling apart the way a lot of people had felt they would when the graduates of the class of 90, 95, 2000, 2005. Kids aren't learning anything anymore. Once the people who know what they're doing get older and retire, everything's going to fall apart. And yet that does not happen.
It doesn't. Thank you, corporate culture.
Yes, and thank you, the youth of America, most of whom do grow up just like we did. Even though we were back in high school, I was surrounded by ne'er-do-wells. And like, if my peers are taking over the world, class of 81, Southfield High School, if my peers are taking over the world, it's all going to fall apart by 1984.
Yeah, it didn't.
It didn't.
So
it's not that everything's great.
Yeah. And
it's just they're not any worse than they were back then.
And Yaron kept pressing the point, which is true, that yes, all of this, going through school, university, trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, trying to get meaning out of things, trying to avoid, the toxic altruistic morality, trying to find people who you can be visible with, trying to start a business. It's all of it is harder than it should be. Now, yes,
he did make that point. Now, he was not being a Pollyanna. Right. Everything is harder than it should be.
Yes. But, and then he says, but that's just the reality. And he says this, I kind of like this. He said, it's not quite metaphysical, but it's almost metaphysical from the perspective of there's very little you can do about it.
Right.
You can say, I resent the fact that I have to, if I call the IRS, I need to be on hold for at least 2.5 hours before I get to talk to somebody. You can resent that. But he goes on to say, don't, let this, don't let the world bring you down. You only have one life. Every second of your life is one that you live, is one that you'll never get back. Make the most of it. And you have to have that confidence that you can still achieve despite it being harder.
Right.
But, and honestly, I think.
And that hit hard with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we've talked about that in the context of forgiveness and other discussions where you're judging people who have been good to you. And it has a persistence. It has a permanence. It means something. There's a reason we are loyal to people in our circle. It's not a blind loyalty. It's not a matter of faith. It's that they have earned it. Mm-hmm. And they haven't earned it as in they've earned a leap of faith. They've simply given you all the ammunition to know, even if they do something wrong, this is at root and at core a good person. Similarly for bad people. And you can take your kindred spirits and your devotion to them as a fact, as data, as information, more than just a feeling. You can also do that with the people who do you wrong, the people who disappoint you, the aspects of the culture that are working against you. And in that sense, I agree with Yaron. When we discuss the metaphysical versus the man-made, we do have to judge people who do us wrong. But once they have done us wrong, those are now facts to deal with.
Yes.
And you can spend the rest of your life resenting it.
Yes.
Or you can simply do what you've got to do about it. There's just no reason to carry that stuff on your back,
right,
on your shoulder.
Well, I don't want to give away everything that Yaron Brook said in his speech, because if and when that is released, you should all listen to it and enjoy it.
And you could watch it now by purchasing the virtual OCON.
There you go.
I've got a link to it in the show notes on my Facebook wall there.
That's great.
Of course, eventually, I'm sure it'll be posted on YouTube, but you don't have to wait if you've got that cash in your pocket and it's burning a hole. So what was the point you were going to mention that Yaron made?
Oh, it's not what Yaron made. It was it's something that I want to bring up and then kind of tie this into ARCUK.
Okay.
So Ben Bear,
yes,
who is amazing, who was helped by ARI to compile a lovely booklet called Abortion is Sacrosanct.
Why the right to abortion
Yes.
is sacrosanct.
Why the right to abortion is sacrosanct.
Yes.
It's a great little book for $6. You can send it, to places, to people, send it out, get it out there in the universe. But he got up during the Q&A after Yaron spoke, and he said, when vetting applicants to Ayn Rand University, we asked where they heard about Ayn Rand's ideas. The first answer was they got one of Ayn Rand's books from a friend or a teacher. The second answer, the second most likely answer that he got was, I saw Yaron Brook on YouTube. and the whole audience just, applauded and everything. It was really, really lovely.
Yep.
And it was lovely that Ben got up and gave Yaron a compliment, which was wonderful. And it's something I think that more of us need to do with each other and give each other compliments. I was complimenting some people about their questions, and people would get up and ask questions. I'm like, that's a great question. So afterwards I would tell them.
You were putting your policy into effect during OCON.
Yes.
We did a whole show called Compliments! And Amy, even more than me, made the point that we should be extending recognition to our kindred spirits, our peers, our friends, like minds. Leonard Peikoff said the first duty of justice, I think justice is getting bad people what they deserve. The first duty of justice is to acknowledge and defend the good.
Yes. Yes. Tell people who are good that they are good.
Yes.
Absolutely. And
I don't have the quote in front of me, but yeah, he makes the point that it is important to tell James Taggart that he's a ne'er-do-well, but it's more important to tell Hank Rearden that what he does is recognized and appreciated.
yes.
And this should be true with each other, with our friends, with our peers, with our fellow objectivists.
Yes. And with that, I just want to give a big shout out to our man, Razi, who is the gentleman who created this wonderful channel, Ayn Rand Center UK. And I just want to extend, I hope you're going to listen to this. I'll tell you to listen later on, but I mean, I am so grateful to him for bringing us on for our Life on Our show here on this channel. And, I feel sometimes, maybe there are people out there who will say, you know what, I should give Ayn Rand a listen. I really should read some of what she said, or read some of this or that, and actually finally pick up that copy of Atlas Shrugged, even though it's intimidatingly long. and I hope that we're offering encouragement and inspiration for people to do that. As Yaron Brook has been offering inspiration and encouragement to register to apply at the Ayn Rand Center or the Ayn Rand University for Ayn Rand Institute. So I just want to say a big thanks to Razi for all that you do. And I really enjoyed spending time with you and seeing how much of an impact Ayn Rand Center UK had at the OCON conference. And I just loved it. So thank you. And I really loved when you hugged Tom, by the way. It was just so special and sweet. Yes. So
Yes.
and that's another reason, by the way, you should become a member of Ayn Rand Center UK. Become a member on YouTube, of course, for only, I think, $4.99 a pounds a month or something. You get like a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
And also become a member on Ayn Rand Center
.co.uk.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think the lowest level of membership is, there's 4 levels. You really should be the Reardon Medal level, the highest level of that. But if you're on a budget, that's cool. It's something like £10 a month, whatever it is. It's trivial.
Yes.
And you do want to be part of that. I'm just looking through the chat here real quick.
Yeah,
of course.
so,
Apollo Zeus says, "Thanks for saying I'm good, Amy." Well, of course she was talking about you. You knew you could tell that because you're so good. You could figure that out.
You are good.
Somebody with your level of tiddlywink prowess has no problem figuring that one out.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And
so much good stuff here. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to a few in particular of these talks coming out, as they often do on YouTube. Some of them take a while. Again, if you're thinking about buying the virtual conference and you've got that kind of money, you can go for it. But a lot of these will come out eventually.
Yeah.
Yaron's talk, Ben Bayer's talk was especially good.
Yes.
Of course, we play favorites. Our favorites are almost invariably they tend to be the most positive. And not just positive optimistic, but people who are addressing positive issues.
Yes.
You've got Gina Gorlin, who is analyzing the builder's mindset, what it takes for high-level entrepreneurs to do what they do and how to do that more consistently. That's been great fun watching Gina Gorlin on that.
Yes. And my favorite talk was Jason Crawford's Roots of Progress.
Roots of Progress.
So amazing.
If you've been following progress studies at all, and we've had that conversation several times, if you've been going to humanprogress.org or Our World in Numbers, or following the rational optimists like Steven Pinker, then you are aware of the domain in which Jason is operating. And that's great to hear updates from that. So much more is coming. And aside from doing progress studies, for me, it becomes part of just reinforcing my view of the world. Nothing makes sense right now if you're a pessimist. None of the fact that the streetlights are still running and the grocery stores are still full of food and the department stores are still full of clothes, and the internet side, companies like Walmart and Amazon are still pushing out a zillion products every day and on a 24-hour. None of it makes any sense. If you're a pessimist, how do you explain any of what is still happening? Well, you don't. What you do is you look at the stories about, oh yeah, but these container ships got stuck at this harbor, and oh yeah, but there's this war over here and this bad guy here and this bad politician. None of it explains any of what we're actually surrounded by 24 hours a day, unless you keep your eyes glued to the television screen.
So yeah, Bonnie mentions that Ankar's talk with regard to the Dobbs decision is very logical about it. And she says it made her cry.
So logical. Absolutely. It made me cry. We've had a lot of very emotional discussions about
when you can take that kind of thing, that horrible, just murky, subjective, nonsensical opinions of these Supreme Court justices, unfortunately, and break them down, analyze them, untangle them, and find the fundamentals and the essentials of what they were saying. It was very, very helpful. Very helpful. So yes.
Yeah, it's hard to find a bright side in that. The only bright side of grief is that it reinforces your values, that it reminds you that you do have passions, that you do care.
Yes.
I got nothing else good that I can say about Roe, again, other than we will keep fighting at the state level. And it will take years, but eventually there will be a Roe replacement.
And I'm also very heartened by all the news reports out there talking about doctors and women and men and all sorts of people who are trying to help out the situation.
It reinforces my belief that there will eventually be a replacement for Roe. It will be better. It will be solid. The way that I know that is Roe happened. That decision happened for a reason. It was a natural part of the progression toward rights. Unfortunately, often in the form of human rights, call them that if you will. The point is individual rights are on the ascent. They have been throughout history for all the reasons that Steven Pinker talks about in The Better Angels of Our Nature, but I think with more philosophical grounding than he realizes. There will be a replacement for Roe. Because of current politics, it ain't going to happen this year. Well, probably not. It's probably not going to happen in the next 5 years, but not much longer than that. Roe was there for a reason. There will be a replacement for all of the same reasons. But yes, you're right, Bonnie. It's got a lot of us very emotional.
And speaking of OCON, I really appreciate it. I let Tal know this by way of my policy on compliments. I told him, I said, I'm grateful that ARI chose to focus positively on the three non-conservatives or anti-conservative topics of reproductive rights, immigration, and COVID science. These are necessary topics for many reasons, and I'm glad that ARI differentiates from the right, from the conservatives. So
very bold,
very principled, very objective, and
there's room for disagreement there. You know, Harry did a long talk and a general session, meaning there was no one else against him, talking against him. Everybody was there on why immigration shouldn't just be open. It should be literally open. It should be no different to drive into the United States than it is to drive from California into Nevada.
Mm-hmm.
That country borders should be no different than state borders.
Yep.
They are domains for law enforcement and for other policies, but they are not areas of exclusion, which is pretty freaking radical.
Yeah, I liked his, I don't know if I'd be able to really talk about it very much here, but I liked how he said sovereignty is jurisdiction.
Yes.
And
exactly.
It's not some sort of like Kantian moral imperative or Hegelian collective organism of sovereignty of the nation.
Well, you know, people want to imagine the United States is like Israel, that we're constantly under attack and we need to build the Iron Dome, which means, you know, walls on the borders.
Right.
And no, Harry had a pretty good takedown of that one. That one goes live on YouTube.
It's going to be very interesting.
Whether you agree or not, you will enjoy listening to that one. But
yes,
again, trying times, these are trying times. Roe especially, but also, you know, what's going on in politics right now. And there aren't too many bright, what's the word I'm looking for? There's not too much good in politics right now. You know, there's a few shining stars out there, but they're way in the distance. You'd need like a really powerful telescope to be able to see them.
Mm-hmm. Like James Webb's telescope.
Like the James Webb telescope, in order to see those few pinpricks of light that are in the political scene out there.
Yeah, Daniel had us go up with I'm forgetting SpaceX or whatever it is called.
I got COVID.
Anyway.
I can't remember anything.
So we went up to space and we got in front of the James Webb
yeah,
telescope.
We went out and took over the telescope.
Daniel
camped out there like anarchists doing seasteading in our own little island, and we're going to try to get people to recognize it.
Yes. So,
you know, I said in regard to the primacy of values that we are here to live a life and you're not here to fight evil. You've got to fight evil sometimes, but it's not what you're here for. And that same perspective of the primacy of values, I thought, rung true throughout the conference. Again, you've got to fight evil. You've got to be aware of what's going on out there, but it's not what you're here for.
Right.
You're here to live a life.
Yes.
You're here to be with your friends. You're here to do the things you love. You're here to do the kind of work that you want to do, to have the things you want to have. You're here to spend your precious, irreplaceable time on your values. Excuse me. And hopefully not to pick up too many diseases and viruses in the meantime. You know, would you tell a young child, a 5-year-old, your 5-year-old, or a neighbor's 5-year-old, or your nephew, your niece, would you tell a kid right now, 5 years old, there's no time to waste. You need to devote yourself to the culture war. You need to get on board with this. So someday, if you fight hard enough, young Johnny, little Lucy, if you fight hard enough, someday you'll be able to step back from all that and actually enjoy your life. But right now,
Fun.
you need to be focused on fighting. Would you tell a little kid that?
That's when I would start throwing a tantrum.
Would you tell your partner, your mate, your spouse
Right.
that you should spend less time being romantic with me and more time holding a protest sign on the barricades?
Yeah. Would you do that for a graduation speech?
And yet
No.
we look in the mirror and we think, yeah, I've got to fight. Or we go on the internet and we think, yeah, whenever I engage with people, it's because I'm fighting this stuff. You know,
Right.
sometimes you got to fight. And fortunately, you can fight with things like money. You know, I send money to organizations and let them do a lot of the fighting for me. But sometimes I'm out there with a protest sign. I've done it before and I'll do it again. I posted pictures of that recently. I've got a whole album of the many protests that Amy and I participated in,
Sure.
and rallies that we put up booths at, especially during the Obama presidency.
Mhm.
It's not that I'm saying never fight, but that's not what your life is about.
Right. And if you have to fight, try to find kindred spirits to join you to make it fun and to
Yes.
make it and to assert the positive, especially.
Exactly. My rule of thumb about politics is fight in such a way that even if you lose, it was worth it. You enjoyed the time. You were with kindred spirits. It was worth fighting for. You have no duty to save the world.
Yeah, and it's one thing that that kind of gets me is I remember when I was a young objectivist and I would feel guilty about not fighting. I'm not doing enough.
Not doing enough. If I
And,
was just doing more, maybe the
and,
world
you
would be
know,
rational.
You know, Yaron had such, and he didn't quite make this point, but I'm kind of connecting it to what he was saying in his speech. He was talking about pursuing your values, be ambitious about your life, about your happiness. And you can't do that if you're consumed with dread all the
Yes.
time, and that you're afraid of, of the future. And then he talked about, gaining self-esteem is part of that confidence, that self-assertiveness, that you can be successful. Your self-esteem shouldn't be based on how much you fought. It should be based on engaging with the world and pursuing your values, your goals, and your dreams, and finding yourself efficacious and successful at it. That's where your self-esteem should be coming from. So it shouldn't be based on how many fires have I put out today.
Right. So, Amy, thank you for the topic.
You're so welcome.
We should be asking one another, how's your universe?
How is your universe, Robert?
My universe is benevolent. My universe is challenged, but the challenges can be met and bested. And there's so much to do to celebrate. I mentioned before, there was an objectivist in one of the forums who said, I feel guilty all the time. I know I could be doing better. And I feel like I should be doing better than I am. And if I slack off a little at work, I don't feel good about any of the good things I do. I just feel guilty all the time. I say, well, do you do work at work? Yeah, most of the time I'm working. Are you achieving success? Well, yeah, I am, but I could be better. And it's that perspective that some people have. It's not an objectivist thing, although some of us fall into it, that until I am perfect or until I've achieved all of my long-term goals, it's wrong to celebrate. It's wrong to rest. It's wrong to take vacations. It's wrong because I am not everything that I could and should be. Mm. And that is not just a profound failure of integration, that nobody can actually work 18 hours a day. And that's not the reason you're working anyway. But it's also a profound injustice.
It is.
You are not here to work and work and work until you're finally good enough. And then at 90, sitting in your rocking chair on the porch, you can think, okay, now I can be proud. Now I can have self-esteem.
But your self-worth shouldn't be just based on the product that you create, the successes that you have, the particular points that you have in your life, but on the process. You need to be proud of the process. And as Leonard Peikoff was talking about, when Ayn Rand says, when she's talking about, good premises, the idea is that thinking is a lifestyle. Thinking is it's the method and of reason, and it's something you definitely need to be proud of.
You deserve pride for every good thing you have ever done.
Mhm.
If you're going to be ashamed of every misstep, then you damn well better be proud of every single good thing you do. What did
Yeah.
Quent Cordair say? Quent Cordair of Quent Cordair Fine Art at cordair.com. Quent Cordair says, one does not deserve to be one's own harshest critic without also being one's most devoted fan.
Love
You
this, great.
deserve that for yourself. You deserve it for your friends, for your allies, for your kindred spirits.
Yes. And in the meantime, I'm going to, I'd like to wrap up the show with this.
Yes.
Something that Tal said in his opening remarks of OCON. We are truly a special collection of people. Did you notice how intelligent people around you are? How passionate they are about what they do? How they aspire to be rational, life-loving, truly good people. And then he goes on to talk about what he's learned about all the relationships that he's made and all the benefits he's gained from those relationships in the objectivist community. Well, here is my my encouragement to you all. Ask each other, how is your universe?
That's right.
And learn from each other and be good to each other, be good to yourself, and don't take other people's virtues for granted, and especially don't take your own virtues for granted.
So thank you very much for joining us. We're going to jump over to Clubhouse. In the meantime, remember, it's written on the back of my iPad here. Let's see if I can get that to read. We are surrounded by miracles, not least of which is ourselves.